Welcome back, everybody, for day 2 of the World of Warcraft article. I'm Kat.
I'm Tiffany.
And yesterday we were talking about this really interesting and kind of strange and scary incident that happened in 2005, almost 15 years ago.
Wow.
Called the Corrupted Blood incident.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay, what was that? Well, basically, it was started by a problem with a very, very difficult raid area inside of the game. They had a monster there that had the ability to make people sick.
Yeah.
And then people could be healed from the sickness,
Right.
but I believe it was like a pet who got sick there.
Yeah, there was a pet that was not a player, and it got sick, and somebody forgot to heal it. And then when they got back to town, it started killing everybody.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
the evil pet.
I'm sure the pet was just totally innocent. It was probably like, what's
Save
going
me.
on? I don't know. Yeah, it's just a little doggy, But anyway, so in the end, this plague got so out of control, Blizzard had to reset the entire game just to get rid of it. And it was not their intention to start this at all. But it's kind of interesting because even after it ended, people haven't forgotten it, and people were kind of still interested in it. So we're going to see what kind of people were interested and why they were interested in this plague as of today. Let's go to our article.
Reading.
Corrupted Blood. How an in-game disease got the world's attention. The corrupted blood incident may have seemed like just a slip-up in the game's coding to some. Scientists, however, noticed something interesting about it. Even though it was only in a game, players reacted to the epidemic as though it were real. Some tried to form quarantine areas. Many healers set up healing stations for the infected. However, a lack of organization among in-game groups meant that the disease couldn't be stopped even in these places. Since characters would respawn every time they died, the infection could have lasted forever. Scientists saw the plague as a unique research opportunity. Since epidemics are thankfully rare in the real world, the corrupted blood incident was a non-lethal way to study their effects. Researchers have published papers comparing human behavior in the incident and real-life behaviors around diseases. Some have suggested using MMORPGs more often to study the spread of disease. They hope that what they discover can help the world be better prepared for possible future epidemics. The corrupted blood plague may have started out as a mistake, but understanding it might help us save real lives in the future.
We're going to learn a little bit more about maybe why this happened and how did it happen. Because I think for most people, we think, oh, it must have been something, something inside of the computers, like the gaming's code.
I guess.
Yeah, so here it says the corrupted blood incident may have seemed like just a slip-up in the game's coding to some, okay?
Right.
So a slip-up is just basically like a mistake, to make a mistake or to make an error. So for example, let's say your friend told you something and he or she told you to keep it a secret, but one day, oops, you told someone else.
Oops.
That can be called a slip-up because you weren't supposed to tell them. It was a mistake on your part. Now, we said that maybe it could be a slip-up with the coding. When we talk about coding, especially with computers, it means like writing some kind of message on a computer to tell the computer what to do. So that's basically what coding means.
Okay, so we actually see that we're talking about the game's coding, that it might just be a small mistake here, and coding, or the verb to code, means the practice of writing computer programs. It's like the language you write when you are trying to write a game, or when you're trying to write maybe a new operating system for a different computer or something like that. It's like a message or a series of messages that tells the computer what to do or what to write. So an example of this might be, I just applied to a course that teaches people how to design and code their own apps. And it's how they make games, it's how they make software, it's how they make everything in a computer, basically. It's all code.
Wow.
Yeah. So it may have seemed like a slip up in coding, but Scientists, however, noticed something interesting about it. Wonder what that could be.
It says, even though it was only in a game, players reacted to the epidemic as though it were real. So that's true. We thought that, okay, it's just in a game, like if the dog wasn't healed or if the pet wasn't healed, then maybe it'll just be sick all around. But actually, this pet was infecting or kind of making the other weaker players sick. So that's what a lot of scientists are like, oh, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
Here we see the word epidemic. An epidemic is when a disease spreads really quickly and affects a large group of people.
Right.
We were talking about this in day one about how a disease can spread to many people and kill many people. We talked about the Black Plague or the Black Death. That was an epidemic that happened long time ago, somewhere in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, it did, and it was a huge epidemic, and like we said, it killed
like a third of
Europe, and I think it killed a lot of people in China too. Yeah. So in response to this, like they were treating it like it was a real thing because their real lives weren't being affected, but the lives of their characters were. So what they decided to do was treat it like a real plague. So some tried to form quarantine areas. Yeah, quarantine is this interesting concept which we often do when diseases are around. It's where we keep an area very highly controlled and we try and limit the movement of people or animals in and out of that area until the disease is taken care of. When you bring a pet to a different country for the first time, they'll also go into quarantine just so that they can make sure your pet doesn't have any diseases that it's bringing to the country that are not in there already.
Next it says many healers set up healing stations for the infected. Okay, so because this thing in the game was spreading around like crazy, they tried to set up areas to kind of help the people so they can stop this disease from spreading to other players. So here we see the pocket phrase set up. Set up means to build something like a structure at a specific place.
Right.
So they probably set up this area in the grass or something.
They've got a sign that says, come get healed.
Help.
Yeah.
Come here to get help. And people will go there to get help. We also saw the word infected. Now, when you're infected, it means that it's containing germs that can cause you to be really sick. So usually when you have a cold, you are infected with germs. Yeah. So now, just how sick you feel just really depends on what kind of germs you are infected with, okay? So if you have a really bad, nasty germ, maybe it will make you super sick, okay? For example, we can say, did you just cut yourself? Wash your hands now so it won't get infected.
Right, yeah, you got to make sure you wash your cuts or else those germs could get in there.
And it can make the cut even worse.
Yeah, so they were trying to do all these things like set up limited areas, quarantine areas, or set up places for people to go get healed. However, a lack of organization among in-game groups meant that the disease couldn't be stopped, even in these places. So it sounds like they weren't working together very well, and we're going to see more about that organization word. Okay, so this word organization is a noun which can have a few different meanings, but here it means keeping things in order and having a place and a time for every part of something. It's a little bit different from organization, which means a company, like an organization for such and such reason. If you say you have good organization skills, that means you're very good at putting things together and making sure that they all work as they should. The verb form of this is to organize. But it sounds like these groups couldn't organize with each other and they couldn't get all their parts to work together. Here's another example. The army may have been huge, but its lack of organization, that means it's not having organization, meant it was still easy to defeat.
All right, so let's continue reading the article. It says, since characters would respawn every time they died, the infection could have lasted forever. So remember again, respawn means like in the video game, you die, but you're able to come back to life again. And this was happening to everyone the whole time. So it's kind of like, you know, the computer lagging or something.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like that, but it actually wasn't.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably made, you know, things kind of grind to a halt and just stop working and everything became really disorganized in that region. So, but here was the thing that happened afterward. Scientists saw the plague as a unique research opportunity. So they're going to do some research on it. And research, this noun means study something to try to find more info about something else, like especially using science. If you're doing research, you're trying to find out maybe something completely new that humans don't know yet. Like, for example, doing research in medicine, you might want to find a cure for some disease. Or if you're doing research in physics, which is like some science of movement, could be about how things move around in space. Another example, the doctor has been doing research on this disease for 20 years, and she may have finally found a cure.
Ooh, good breakthrough.
Good job, doctor. Yeah.
All right, so next it says, since epidemics are thankfully rare in the real world, the corrupted blood incident was a non-lethal way to study their effects. Okay, so luckily we don't really have these scary diseases happening now in our world today.
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
they can always come back, but...
Yeah, but luckily... nothing too serious yet. I mean, we still have a lot of diseases that we have to be careful for, but thankfully nothing as bad as the Black Plague or something.
Exactly, yeah. And if it does come back, maybe we have more of a way to control it.
Exactly. Now we saw the word thankfully here. It's an adverb, and this word is very easy. It just means to feel thankful for something. For example, I could say, I left my keys at home, but thankfully my mom was home today to open the door for me.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, or else I would have been outside homeless for I don't know how many hours.
Oh gosh.
All right, now because we don't have these terrible diseases in our real world today, but this incident in WOW was a non-lethal way to kind of study this. When something is non-lethal, we can take a look at this. We can learn what the word lethal means. Lethal means that something that can cause death. It means that it can cause death. Now, if you add the word non in front of it, it just means like no. So non-lethal means something that does not cause death.
Right, so it's a safe way to study diseases, which is kind of weird sounding if you think about it. Yeah, but it's a non-lethal way. So researchers have published papers comparing human behavior in the incident and real-life behaviors around diseases. So they were able to kind of make these comparisons between this thing that happened and this thing that could happen in the future. All right, so we have this word behavior here. We're talking about the behavior that people show when they're faced with a big disease. Behavior is a noun that tells you about how people act or think or talk, or all three. The verb for this is behave. If you are in certain situations that are not the same as normal, then you might act differently from normal. And an example of that might be an epidemic. Or if you're in a war situation, people's behavior in war might be very different from like it usually is in their other parts of their life. Or, you know, you could just have your normal everyday behavior. No matter what you're doing, if you're doing something and it's kind of a human thing to do, you're behaving in some way. So here's another example. My mom's behavior today is so strange. She's been rushing around all day and I feel like she's hiding something.
Yeah, actually, I'm afraid that maybe one day there might be a scary disease that will pop up and someone found a cure, but this cure might turn us all into zombies.
Oh,
I feel like, yeah, those movies might come true one day.
I don't know. I mean, you know, it could happen. We don't know what kind of things are going to evolve or what kind of things are going to pop up or come back. Like there are some diseases which we never really found a cure for, but they just kind of went away on their own. So maybe those things might come back one day.
Yeah. Well, maybe scientists can use this method to study about the diseases more. Here we can read in the article, it says, some have suggested using MMORPGs more often to study the spread of disease. And I agree. I think this is definitely a very, very safe way for scientists and doctors to study certain diseases and how they spread, so we maybe can prevent that in the future. All right, so we see the word spread. Spread here is actually used as a noun, and it means to cause something to be present in more places. As we know, bees help spread pollen and seeds. They help bring seeds to more places and even larger places. So if we want to use it as a noun, we could say the spread of pollen and seeds helped make a lot of beautiful flowers grow.
Okay, so they've done a lot of research on this already, it seems like. Yeah, they've done some research to compare like behaviors and epidemics in real life and not in real life, and they're thinking like, hey, we can use MMORPGs to do more of this. And they hope that what they discover can help the world be better prepared for possible future epidemics. I think that's a pretty good idea.
I think so too.
Yeah. So but here we see this grammar point. This is our grammar point of the day. What they discover. This is using a subject and verb with a question word as a noun phrase. For example, like who, what, when, where, why, how. You can use any of those with a subject and a verb to substitute for the noun that answers them. For example, if you say, like what they discovered, that would be the thing they discovered. What did you discover? This is the thing you discovered. Or where you went, the place you went, how you did it, the way you did it. But we don't use it in the form of a question. Like we can't say, we can say, I know that what I did was wrong and I'm sorry. But we cannot say, I know that what did I do was wrong and I'm sorry. We have to use it as what or the other question word plus subject plus verb, without using it in question form.
All right, next in the article it says, the corrupted blood plague may have started out as a mistake, but understanding it might help us save real lives in the future. I agree as well. So it's kind of good that this thing happened inside of a game, because without this, scientists and doctors wouldn't have thought, hey, we can use online games and video games to do research. So
that's right.
This is a new way for them to probably, be more I think experimental in the way they look at things.
Yeah.
All right, now we see a pocket phrase here, go here, it says start out as, and it just means to begin something. It could be something like your career, or career is basically your work life, and you begin this thing in a particular way. So, for example, I can say, I started out as a teacher's assistant, but now I am a university professor, or something like that.
So you went from low to high.
Yeah, that's usually what start out means. You probably start out as one thing and then you end up doing something else.
That's right. So I think,
I think it's a good way for them to do research on. Hopefully we don't have any of these scary diseases in the future, but it's a good way for them to do their research. Another way for people to do research, and I'm so glad it's nothing that's happening in our real world today, though.
I
don't want to become a zombie.
Me either. And I think it's actually kind of a lucky opportunity that they were able to see this, like you said. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. We are done with our article for today, but right now we're going to go to our For You chat.
For You chat.
All right, our For You chat question for today is, what are some other ways scientists or ordinary people could use games to learn about something? It's a fascinating question.
That's a really good question, actually, because I think a lot of these online games are a little bit similar to our real life today, and I think they can probably use games to maybe write certain codes, to learn about how people might react to certain things, and it could also be a social experiment as well, instead of a medical one, too.
Right. I've actually seen like a couple of things about how VR can actually help us in like a therapeutic way, in like a way where it can help us to overcome our fears. Like if you're afraid of heights, but you try a VR kind of therapy, like counseling, then it can help you to overcome your fear. It can help you to be less afraid of heights because you are exploring high places in a way that's very safe.
That's true. Actually, that's a really good idea. I don't think I'll try that yet, but that's probably something that I think some people could consider. This is something that could be the future of therapy for some people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of different applications. I think we're just touching the surface. There's so many different ways that you could use games to learn about something or make something better, like in real life. I think there's, the possibilities are endless. So maybe you guys have some great ideas. And
share them with your classmates. You can even write comments to us and share them with us, because I think your ideas can be really useful to other people too.
Right, and maybe you can even come up with your own useful way to use a game someday, and we'll hear all about it. Okay, we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye.
Corrupted blood. How an in-game disease got the world's attention. The corrupted blood incident may have seemed like just a slip-up in the game's coding to some. Scientists, however, noticed something interesting about it. Even though it was only in a game, players reacted to the epidemic as though it were real. Some tried to form quarantine areas. Many healers set up healing stations for the infected. However, a lack of organization among in-game groups meant that the disease couldn't be stopped even in these places. Since characters would respawn every time they died, the infection could have lasted forever. Scientists saw the plague as a unique research opportunity. Since epidemics are thankfully rare in the real world, the corrupted blood incident was a non-lethal way to study their effects. Researchers have published papers comparing human behavior in the incident and real-life behaviors around diseases. Some have suggested using MMORPGs more often to study the spread of disease. They hope that what they discover can help the world be better prepared for possible future epidemics. The corrupted blood plague may have started out as a mistake, but understanding it might help us save real lives in the future.
Vocabulary Review.
Code. Anne knew how to make video games because she learned to code computer programs in elementary school. Infected. The doctor ordered the infected child to stay home for 2 weeks until he got better. Organization. Will writes his tasks in a small book to help with the organization of his schoolwork. Research. After the discovery of a special kind of cancer-killing cell in animals, scientists are doing further research into its possible uses. Behavior. Benjamin's parents noticed a sudden change in his behavior. He grew quieter and spent more time alone. Spread. The spread of this disease began in a local hospital, and soon enough, it had reached most parts of the city.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net